Today we're going to talk about something that affects hundreds of thousands of older Aussies, but rarely gets discussed when we think about keeping our minds sharp after 65. The research suggests that social isolation and loneliness can significantly speed up memory loss and cognitive decline in adults over 65. Now, before you start worrying that every quiet afternoon in your lounge room is doing damage, let me give you the clear picture of what the evidence actually shows, what the limitations are, and what practical steps make sense for Australian lifestyles. I've spent the past several months reviewing the published Australian and international research on this topic, and I want to share what we know, what we don't know, and why this matters particularly for us here in Australia. Before we dive in, I want to be clear that this is educational content, not medical advice. It's not a substitute for talking to your GP. Everyone's situation is different, so if you're worried about your memory or feeling isolated, book an appointment with your doctor under Medicare and get personalized guidance. Let me explain what we mean by social isolation and loneliness, because they're related but not the same thing. Social isolation is the objective side of it. How many times a week do you actually see or speak with other people? Are you living alone in that suburban house or unit? Have you lost touch with your old workmates since retirement? Loneliness is the feeling side. It's that deep sense that no one really gets you or that you're on your own, even if you're technically around people. You can be socially isolated without feeling lonely if you're happy with your own company, and you can feel lonely in a crowd if the connections aren't meaningful. In Australia, both matter for brain health, but the research shows they can affect us differently. Here's what changes as we get older in this country. Retirement often means losing that daily yarn with colleagues. Your kids might have moved interstate or overseas for work. Mates pass away or move into aged care. If you've given up driving because of vision or confidence issues, getting out becomes much harder, especially in our spread out suburbs where everything requires a car. Many of us move to places like the Sunshine Coast, Gold Coast, or regional Victoria for retirement, which can be wonderful but also means leaving behind long-established social networks. Our Aussie culture of rugged independence and not wanting to be a burden can sometimes make it harder to reach out when we need company. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, around 1 in 3 people over 65 live alone, and loneliness affects up to 40% of older Australians at some point. These aren't small numbers. Think of your brain like a muscle that needs regular, complex exercise. Having a proper conversation isn't simple. You're reading facial expressions, remembering what was said last week, following the thread of the story, managing your emotions, and responding appropriately. All of that lights up multiple areas of the brain, especially the hippocampus, which is crucial for memory. When that stimulation drops off sharply, those pathways don't get the workout they need. On top of that, feeling chronically lonely raises stress hormones and inflammation levels in the body, which over time can affect how well your brain forms and retrieves memories. Let me walk you through what the Australian research actually tells us. A major study published in the Medical Journal of Australia in 2022 followed more than 15,000 Aussies aged 65 and over for 10 years. The researchers from the University of Sydney tracked both their social connections and their performance on memory and thinking tests. They found that those with high levels of social isolation showed cognitive decline roughly 40% faster than those who stayed well connected. To put that in real terms, the difference was similar to what you'd expect from aging an extra 5 to 7 years. This was an observational study though, so it can't prove that isolation directly caused the faster decline. It might be that subtle memory changes made people withdraw first. The researchers tried to account for that, but we still need to be cautious about claiming absolute cause and effect. Another important piece of local research came from the Sydney Memory and Aging Study, published in 2023. This long-running project at UNSW followed thousands of older Sydneysiders and found that people who reported feeling lonely most of the time had a 26% higher risk of developing dementia over 6 years. Interestingly, this effect held up even when they had some social contact. The feeling of loneliness itself seemed to matter. They also measured blood markers and found higher inflammation in the lonely group, which gives us one possible biological explanation. However, The study sample was mostly from urban New South Wales, so we don't know if the same patterns hold exactly the same way in rural Queensland or remote South Australia. A big review published in The Lancet in 2021 pulled together data from over 50 studies worldwide, including several Australian ones. It concluded that socially isolated older adults had about a 50% higher risk of dementia, while those experiencing loneliness had around a 30% increased risk. These effect sizes are comparable to other known risk factors like smoking or being physically inactive. But here's the honest part. Not every study agrees on the size of the effect. Research from Monash University in Melbourne found somewhat smaller associations, especially among people with higher education levels or those who stayed physically active. This tells us the picture is nuanced. Your education, your overall health, your genetic background, and even how good your hearing is all influence how much social isolation affects your memory. Brain imaging work from the Florey Institute here in Australia has added another layer. They scanned the brains of older volunteers and found that those with more regular, meaningful social contact tended to have better preserved hippocampus volume and stronger connections between memory-related brain regions. The researchers suggested that the mental effort of keeping up with conversations and remembering social details helps maintain brain plasticity. Again, though, these studies show association rather than definitive proof, and the sample sizes are often modest by research standards. We need more large-scale Australian trials that actually test whether increasing social contact can slow memory decline. So what does this mean for you practically as an older Australian? The good news is there are many ways to stay connected that fit our culture and our different lifestyles around the country. The key message from the research is that quality matters more than quantity. You don't need to become the most popular person at the RSL. Having a few meaningful connections where you can have a proper yarn often seems to provide the brain benefits. If you're living in a capital city or large regional centre, your local council usually runs excellent low-cost or free programs for seniors. These might include morning teas, gentle exercise classes, computer skills groups, or craft mornings. The beauty of these is they give you a regular reason to get out without the pressure of having to organise everything yourself. Many older Aussies find that joining a Probus club works really well. These are specifically for retired professional and business people, and they combine interesting speakers with social outings. Research from Australian universities has found that structured group activities like these are associated with better cognitive maintenance, even if you only attend once or twice a week. Men's sheds have become one of the most successful Australian innovations for tackling isolation in older blokes. If you're a man who misses the mateship of work, consider finding your local men's shed. These places let you work on projects, have a cuppa, and talk about whatever's on your mind. Studies have shown participants often report both better mood and slower cognitive decline. The Australian Men's Shed Association now has hundreds of sheds across the country, from metropolitan areas to small country towns. For those who live in more rural or remote areas or who have mobility limitations, there are still good options. Telephone befriending services run through organizations like Lifeline and various state-based aged care services can match you with a regular friendly caller. Video calls through WhatsApp or Zoom have become much more common since the pandemic, and while they aren't quite the same as sitting on the veranda with a neighbor, they do help maintain connection with family interstate or overseas. Some research from Australian universities suggests regular video contact provides meaningful benefits, though in-person connection still appears stronger when it's possible. Volunteering is particularly powerful according to the Australian data. Whether it's delivering Meals on Wheels, helping out at your local op shop, guiding at the National Trust, or walking dogs for the RSPCA, giving back seems to combine social contact, purpose, and mental stimulation in a way that supports brain health. A Melbourne study found older volunteers showed slower memory decline than non-volunteers over 5 years. The Country Women's Association, bridge clubs, lawn bowls groups, and University of the Third Age U3A programs are other classic Australian ways to stay engaged. U3A in particular is excellent because it combines learning new things with social connection. You might do a course on Australian history, digital photography, or even beginner Spanish, all while making new friends. If you've lost your partner, which is sadly common after 65, bereavement support groups through local councils, churches, or organizations like Griefline can provide both understanding company and practical strategies. Many older widows and widowers tell me that taking that first step to attend a group was difficult, but ultimately made a big difference to their days. Now let's talk honestly about individual differences. If you've always been a bit of a loner and you're genuinely happy with your own company, reading, gardening, or listening to the ABC, then forcing yourself into lots of social activities probably isn't necessary. The risk seems to come mainly from unwanted isolation. What matters is whether there's a gap between the level of connection you want and what you actually have. Comfort matters. Don't force yourself into a weekly bowls club if you genuinely hate lawn bowls. Hearing loss is a massive issue here. Around 1 in 3 Aussies over 65 have significant hearing impairment, and many avoid social situations because they can't follow conversations. If this sounds like you, make an appointment for a hearing test. Medicare covers some of the costs, and properly fitted hearing aids can help you stay engaged socially, which in turn supports your memory. Depression can also play a big role. Feeling isolated can lead to depression, and depression can make you withdraw further. If you're experiencing persistent low mood, losing interest in things you used to enjoy, or having trouble sleeping, speak with your GP. There are excellent Medicare subsidized mental health plans and services like Beyond Blue that are there for exactly this. Let me be direct about when you should see your doctor. If you're forgetting important appointments regularly, getting lost in familiar places like your local shopping center, struggling to follow conversations on the radio or television, having difficulty managing your finances or medications that used to be straightforward, or if family members are commenting that you're repeating yourself more than usual, please make an appointment. These aren't just normal aging. Early assessment through your GP can lead to proper cognitive testing and support through My Aged Care if needed. The earlier you understand what's happening, the more options you have. The same applies if loneliness or isolation feels overwhelming. Your doctor can connect you with social prescribing programs that are becoming more common in Australian general practice, linking you directly to community activities and support services. Let me bring this all together. The Australian research suggests that social isolation and loneliness are linked to faster memory loss and higher dementia risk after 65, with effects that are large enough to take seriously. The mechanisms likely involve both less mental stimulation from fewer complex conversations and higher levels of stress and inflammation from feeling alone. That said, most of the evidence is observational, so we can't claim with absolute certainty that increasing social contact will definitely slow your memory decline. Individual results vary enormously depending on your health, personality, and life circumstances. For most of us, maintaining some regular meaningful social contact is worth making a priority, alongside staying physically active, eating well, looking after your hearing, and keeping your mind engaged. The great thing about Australia is we have so many accessible options, whether it's your local men's shed, U3A, council senior programs, Probus, volunteering, or even regular phone calls with old mates. The goal isn't to fill your calendar with activities you don't enjoy. It's to find a few things that feel worthwhile and sustainable for you. If you're feeling isolated right now, know that you're not the only one, and it's never too late to build new connections. Many older Aussies discover some of their richest friendships after 65. Start small. 1 phone call, 1 morning tea, 1 new group. Pay attention to how it makes you feel. If you found this helpful, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe so I can keep making evidence-based health videos for older Australians. Share it with a mate or family member who might benefit. Drop a comment if you're dealing with this yourself, or if there's another topic you'd like covered, like hearing loss, retirement planning, or staying active on a pension. I read the comments and use them to shape future videos. Remember, this is general information only. For your personal situation, please see your GP. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one where we'll be covering another important health topic for us over 50.